Yeah, you had everybody fooled. Whole time I was drowning behind closed doors. Man of God, huh? Tell you what. Yeah. You was preaching kingdom, I was losing everything. Smile for the camera while you cut me underneath. Told me submit while you emptied out my dreams. Now I see the truth clear was never what it seemed. Said I was your wife, but you treated me like cash. You scripture as control every time I fall back. Public got a profit, private got a mask. Now I'm rebuilding everything you thought would never last. Met you when I'm injured, hand broke, life low. Varsity classes, leadership, nice clothes. Daddy trusted you, so I thought you was solid. Whole time you was clocking my savings and deposits. 778 score, business getting bigger. You saw potential, I thought I found a leader. Talking about structured order, submission. Illy, it was isolation mixed with financial addiction. Sending money every week, another transfer. Whole time I'm disabled, still funding your answers. Told me I was selfish if I wanted my own cash. Meanwhile, you at the bar throwing hundreds in the glass. Otherwise, would never do no lame stuff like this. That sentence still echo when I replay it. And girls sending money like I'm not your wife. Then claim you a prophet while you threatening my life. You was preaching kingdom, I was losing everything. Smile for the camera while you cut me underneath. Told me submit while you emptied out my dreams. Now I see the truth clear was never what it seemed. Said I was your wife, but you treated me like cash. You script control every time I fall back. Public got a profit, private got a match. Now I'm rebuilding everything you thought would never last. Pregnant and alone while you pressure me for settlements. Every phone call felt like another interrogation. Did the check hit? Called a lawyer, what they say. Never asked about the baby, just another payday. Atlanta hotel, roaches, air mattress, whatever. But you in designer shades, trying to stunt like you clever. Fake family YouTube, fake smiles, fake peace. Meanwhile behind scenes, everybody scared to speak. Told me check your feelings, do what your husband say. That ain't leadership, that's control wrapped in faith. Public's got a portion, you somehow I'm out of order. But husbands got commandments too, you just ignore them. Some sons love the church, but where the love at? You want blind obedience while I carried all the debt. Now the bankruptcy real, trauma still unpaid. And you still online preaching like your man's clean today. I was praying for a husband, you was building an image. I was trying to build a family, you was counting percentages. And every woman that endured, cause I told her just stay. I'm sorry, I was surviving the same pain. Kick the door at 2 in the morning. 7 weeks pregnant while you rage and performing. Call yourself a prophet, then prophesize death. That ain't God, that's ego mixed with liquor on your breath. Kids see it too, that's the saddest part. Children shouldn't carry grown men in their heart. When he hate the mother, then the child gon' suffer. Yeah, you said it yourself, I'll never forget them words. Now I see the system, not just one man. Leadership protect, leadership, that was always the plan. Counsel for the wives, excuses for the kings. Truth get buried when the platform sing. But I ain't sitting quiet while my life collapsed. The book of Mark with the peace almost took me with that. Now every episode another piece back. And every time I speak I finally breathe back. You was preaching kingdom, I was losing everything. Smile for the camera while you cut me underneath. Told me submit while you emptied out my dreams. Now I see the truth clear was never what it seemed. Public got a profit, private got a mask. Thought I stayed broken after everything that passed. But I survived a version that you nobody sees. And now the truth finally breathing through me. Yeah.
I was married to a well-known Hebrew Israelite camp leader, someone thousands of people follow, listen to, and respect. But what I experienced behind closed doors was something completely different. And for a long time, I stayed quiet, but not anymore. I was married to someone publicly known as the Deacon, also known as Priest Hakah. Before I go any further, I want to be clear. This is not about being messy. This is not about tearing someone down for entertainment. This is about my real life. This is about my experience, and this is about why I feel I had no choice left but to bring this to a public platform. And I also want to say this from the beginning. I'm not randomly dragging a private person into the public eye. I was already publicly displayed as his wife across his social media platforms, YouTube pages, profile pictures, live streams, and family content. He publicly presented me and his other wives as part of the image and branding of his ministry and family structure. So if my image, my marriage, and my role in his life were public enough to help build that image, then my experience inside of that marriage is also mine to speak about. Especially when what was being shown publicly and what was happening privately were two very different things. There's literally an entire public platform built around this image. People are watching content about love, order, leadership, and family structure, while behind the scenes, I'm experiencing something very different. Right now, I'm separated again. And the way things ended this last time was not small. It was not just an argument, it was not something that could be talked through or fixed overnight. It was one of those moments where everything becomes super clear, where you realize this is not sustainable, this is not safe for me, and this is not something that I can keep carrying. And I'm going to talk about exactly what happened in this series, because that moment is a big part of why I'm here today. I also posted a link to my Substack below, which is a blog website where you can go to and read my entire story. I'm trying to find a way to provide for myself and my daughter after what I experienced as financial abuse in my marriage. And I say that because from my experience, I was left financially devastated. Over the course of this relationship, I lost over $60,000. My credit was destroyed, and I ended up filing for bankruptcy. And I was left trying to care for our daughter while disabled and financially dependent on him, completely. So when people ask, why is she speaking publicly, or say I'm out of order or disrespectful for talking about my husband, I need people to understand something. I did not come here first. In this community, I felt like there was nowhere else to go. We had councils with multiple elders. We spoke with other leaders, Alazar, also known as Guerrilla Hebrew, Captain Tazama, Priest Kahan and his wife Malakiyah, Priest Danya Allah. These were all people my husband claimed to respect. There were opportunities for correction, accountability, and someone to get through to him. And from my experience, none of it changed anything. He did not listen. He did not take advice. He did not receive counsel in a way that brought safety, stability, or change to this situation. And when children are involved, when your livelihood is on the line, and when your future is being affected, silence completely stops being an option. I also want to say something clearly before I continue. During one of our altercations while I was pregnant, he told me he would pay someone $20,000 to get rid of me. I have documentation surrounding that incident, and I will speak more about it later in this series. So if anything were to ever happen to me, I need it understood that statements like that were made directly to me during this relationship.
You think you're funny. You think it's all fun and games. Like, why do you want it? Why do you want me to get into a point where I don't care what the Israel? Why do you want me to get to a point to where I could really?
It's not my fault.
Care? No. Listen to me. Do you not care that I could turn into a greasy ass nigga and say fuck the Israelites and all of that and really get on you in a whole type of way that you couldn't even respond to? Why do you want to push a nigga there?
I don't.
Like, why do you want me?
I don't.
You know I got more money than you and your whole family. Why would you want me to just like say, all right, fuck that. I'm about to just slaughter this bitch. Why do you want me to do that?
You want to do that. That's not what I want you to do. That's what you want to do.
Kill you and your family. That's what I want to do. I want to kill you and your
Why
family.
you want to kill me and my family? Why would you even bring that up?
I just asked you a question, you fucking dummy. I want to kill you and your family. That's what you're saying?
That's what you're saying. I didn't bring that up. Who brought that up? Who brought that up? I never said you.
While my real life is falling apart. And I also want to say this early. I know how this works. I know blame may be shifted onto me. I know the story may become, she chose this. She left. She went against him. She's not being a wife. She's bitter. She's out of order. But that was part of the pattern that I experienced. The issues he created often became my fault. Even now, when I ask for help with rent and basic stability for our daughter, the response becomes that I made my choice, that he doesn't have the funds, or that he only provides for women who are in order. And I need to address that right now because I'm already knowing how this may be framed publicly. She just got mad and she left. She moved against his wishes. She's bitter because he won't pay her bills. But what people need to understand is this. By the time I left again, the marriage had already been breaking down long before that. This did not start because I left. After nearly 2 years of on and off separation, reconciliation attempts, and trying to make things work, I agreed to move back to Washington with my daughter. We began that transition in October 2025. We found a place to rent, and by December 2025, we were already on separation again. That separation happened after a situation involving my car, which I will get more into later. Basically, he allowed his other wives to drive the vehicle my mom financed for me without my knowledge or consent while I was in California. That is a vehicle that he was not paying for, and he let one of them use it who is not insured. He told me he didn't need my permission. He said if anything happened to the car that he would replace it. Meanwhile, he has never paid my mom back for the down payment that he agreed to pay for the vehicle. And there are plenty of other things he agreed to pay and never paid back either. When everything escalated, he started telling me to stay in California, don't bring our daughter back to Washington, and that he would ship my stuff back to San Diego. Then he blocked my number. He even refused to pay for me and my daughter's luggage to return. My mom had to personally call him and remind him that me and his child were completely financially dependent on him before he finally agreed to pay for it. When we got back to Washington, things didn't improve. He immediately started pressuring me again. He told me he was not paying the rent in January. He told me I needed to figure out how to get me and my daughter back to California before the rent came due. This was less than 2 weeks before January. So while all of this was happening, I started applying for low-income housing back in San Diego. Not because I had some secret plan to leave him, but because realistically, I could already see where things were heading. Again, anybody who has dealt with affordable housing knows that the wait list can take years. But I still applied because I knew that me and my daughter were not stable. At the same time, he was telling me I needed to immediately decide whether I wanted a divorce or a separation. He said he reread Matthew and he believed he could write me a bill of divorce outside of fornication. And if I did not want a divorce, then we had to remain separated until at least Passover because of how I reacted to things. And of course, I said I didn't want a divorce. We had literally just got back to Washington and I wanted my daughter to have her father. And I had nowhere else to go. So I agreed to a separation. But even the separation itself was unhealthy and unstable. Then another issue came up. And honestly, this is one of the moments that stayed with me because it shows how quickly things could escalate. It was almond milk, something small. He asked me to get almond milk from the store and I accidentally got the wrong kind. Instead of it just being a normal conversation, he immediately turned it into you need to do better as a wife. And when I told him that was rude and unnecessary, he did not hear me out. He flipped it into me not liking correction. Then he repeated it again, that I need to do better. And I remember sitting there thinking, this is not correction. This is disrespect. When we got off the phone, I didn't say bye. I just hung up because I was tired of constantly being talked down to. That immediately turned into another issue. He made me bring his 2-year-old daughter back right away, even though she and my daughter were both upset and crying because they had bonded and wanted to stay together. And that was really hard emotionally because he was the one saying that he wanted the children bonding as siblings. But anytime that he got upset with me, everything became unstable again. And I started realizing I did not want my daughter deeply attached to situations and routines that could be ripped away every time he got angry or wanted to prove a point. I recorded one of those conversations we had after that because I was trying to explain how deeply this was affecting me. I told him I was tired of being disrespected. I asked him, what was I supposed to allow my daughter to grow up seeing? And instead of apologizing or acknowledging anything, he basically said he would just tell our daughter that people make mistakes. But the problem was he did not believe he made a mistake. He was not sorry. He openly said he was not apologizing. And that hit me really hard because I realized I was being expected to normalize disrespect in front of my daughter and quietly move on from it every single time. And mentally, that just became exhausting. At the same time, we had multiple conversations about the fact that I needed actual help with our daughter. Here's some screenshots of him asking what I needed. what I wanted the visit to look like, and how I wanted things structured. But nothing actually changed. I kept asking him to spend real time with his daughter, to help me, to be present. And his response was basically that even if he only saw her for 30 seconds, that's enough. Meanwhile, I was with her every single day, completely alone. And when we did go over to his house, most of the parenting still fell on me. He also started pushing me to leave her there without me. But realistically, it would not have been him watching her. It would have fallen on to another wife who already had multiple young children of her own. And I kept thinking, you are asking me to leave my 1-year-old exclusively breastfed daughter somewhere she's uncomfortable with people she barely knows while you stay occupied doing other things. That's not co-parenting. That is not active fatherhood. And despite us living literally 4 minutes away from him, there were long stretches where he barely saw our daughter at all, sometimes weeks. The longest stretch was about a month. Now, he hasn't talked to her in about a month. So by the time my daughter got seriously sick in March 2026, and I asked him to take us to the ER, mentally, I was already exhausted from everything leading up to that point. But even then, he told me that I was being dramatic and to just give her some juice. So I ended up taking her myself. She was admitted into the hospital and had to stay there for 5 days. During that entire hospitalization, he did not come. He did not help. He did not call. He did not text. He did not check on his daughter one time. He did not help care for her afterwards either. And that became one of the biggest turning points for me mentally, because I realized I was already functioning like a single mother while still being controlled like a wife. So when a low-income complex near my family in San Diego suddenly called, despite thousands of people being on the wait list, I saw it as an opportunity me and my daughter genuinely needed. I would finally have support around me instead of being isolated in Washington trying to carry everything alone. And when I brought up the move, suddenly the story changed again. Now, suddenly he wanted to focus on our daughter. Now, suddenly he said he would help more. But by that point, I had already heard promises over and over that never turned into consistent action. And one thing he said during that time has never left my mind. He told me, when I hate the mother, the child suffers. And I have that recorded. All by myself, and it's exhausting.
You're not listening. Yes, you're right. And that's because when I don't like the mother of my children, whatever mother it is, I don't even want to be around the children. My issue is, and it's been like that, if I hate the mother of the child is always affected, and that's not okay. But it's how I be feeling.
So no, I did not randomly leave a healthy marriage because I was angry. By the time I moved, the separation had already happened. The instability had already happened. The isolation had already happened. The financial damage had already happened. And I was largely raising our daughter alone. I made the decision I believed was safest and something else. Anything I say in this series, I'm prepared to back up. I have messages, recordings, timelines, proof. So if negative claims are made about me, I ask for the same standard in return. Prove it. Don't just say it, prove it. And if people are brought onto platforms to defend him or discredit me, I want viewers to pay attention to evidence, not the performance. Because from my experience, this became a pattern. Shift the blame, control the narrative, and make the person that's being harmed look like the problem. Later in this series, I'm going to go deeper into what daily life and co-parenting actually look like behind closed doors. Because what people see online is not always what is real in private. And I also know I'm not the only woman who has experienced something like this. I used to question myself constantly, wondering if I was overreacting, if I was misunderstanding things, if I just needed to be better, do better, submit more, be quieter, be softer, be more patient. And honestly, One of the hardest things for me now is realizing there were times I repeated some of those same ideas to other women too. Not because deep down I truly believed that was what was the healthiest for them, but because I was operating from the mindset I was living under at that time. A lot of times I was saying what I believed my husband expected me to say, what I thought a good wife was supposed to say, what I thought being in order sounded like. And looking back now, that's painful for me because I can see how harmful that can be. I know what it feels like to be in something unhealthy and keep trying harder, keep shrinking yourself more, keep silencing yourself more, hoping that if you just say it better, do it better, submit better, or become softer, things will finally get better. So if I ever encouraged another woman to stay quiet longer than she should have, or tolerate something unhealthy because I was speaking from the mindset I was in during that time, I genuinely apologize. At the time, I thought I was helping. But looking back now, I understand much more clearly how easy it is to lose yourself while trying to become what someone else expects from you. And over time, things started to feel deeply wrong. Things were said to me that did not sit right. Things happened that I could not keep ignoring. And I'm going to walk you through all of that step by step. But before I even get into the full story, I want you to hear something.
Yeah, guess what? I'm not the one telling you I wish we could stay in love because I don't like you.
Now you're not saying that.
No,
Hurting
because
me.
because you want a child. Because you want a
So
child.
what? So what? What does that matter? So you just inside of me?
I had a child with Brandy. I'm not in love with her.
So what?
Who the fuck you think you're talking
So why
to?
are you doing that?
Shut up talking. You know what's crazy? What type of bitch wants to go back and forth with somebody who? Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Fuck it. Yeah. So I had a baby with Brandy. I didn't like her. Just like I want to have a baby with you, and I don't like you.
Okay, so
Let's keep this conversation going.
Okay, that's fine. So
let's just stay on the phone while I brutally, verbally abuse you. Let's just stay on the phone and do that. Let's entertain that.
Whose choice is that?
It's your choice.
Why? I'm not choosing to be verbally
because
abused.
you're going back and forth. You can say, let's just get off the phone. You can say, let's talk about something else. Well, guess what? That's not you. You're a drama-fied bitch. That's what you
Wow.
This is one of the moments that stayed with me.
Doing this. Period.
You're not doing what? You're not accepting.
I'm not fucking with you no more.
Period. After you took everything from me. After I know you don't care.
Listen, why are you even talking about that? I'm telling you, I'm not fucking with you. You need to start making plans so that you're not just asked out, bro. You're being dumb. You're not going to be able to talk me back into this.
I'm not. How am I talking you into anything? You're the one that's trying to leave me as a single mother.
After you took all my shit,
you did.
The shit is already over. Okay,
you
it's
did.
already over and done. There's nothing you can do about it. So why are you even saying it?
Because you're doing it again, and you're still happy doing that. That's why.
If I tell you to send me every dollar amount and you don't do it, I'm not fucking with you no more, period.
Look, and that's the problem that you have, is that you can't understand the mentality that you have. I'm not a hoe. You're not my pimp.
Oh. You know what? Watch this. Watch. I'll be there tonight. I'm dropping off your car, and I'm blocking you from everything. From my kids' phones, from everything.
You're doing all of this when I'm pregnant with your child.
Varsity. No, I don't care.
I'm pregnant with your
child. From varsity and everything. And any bitch that wants to talk to you, she will not be able to be a part of Sakari.
And I'm pregnant with your child. And you won't call nobody in Sakari.
It doesn't matter.
Look how you're acting. Look how you're acting.
Shut up while I'm talking.
When there's faith involved, when there's leadership involved, and when the people around you are reinforcing the same ideas, it becomes a lot harder to trust what your own mind and body are telling you. It becomes easier to explain things away, to minimize things, to keep giving grace, to keep trying harder, to keep believing the next conversation will fix it, or the next apology, or the next promise, or the next counsel. And eventually, something shifted in me, and I realized I could not keep ignoring what I was feeling. I could not keep ignoring what I was experiencing, and I could not keep ignoring what all of this was costing me. Not emotionally, not financially, and definitely not as a mother. Because at some point I had to stop asking myself how to keep surviving inside something that was breaking me down and start asking what kind of life I was creating for myself and my daughter if nothing ever changed? That became a very hard question for me because I wanted my marriage to work. I wanted my daughter to have her father. I wanted peace. I wanted stability. I wanted the things that I had been promised. And for a long time, I kept hoping that if I just held on a little longer, something would shift, that things would settle, that things would become what I believed they were supposed to be. But eventually, I had to accept what I was actually living instead of what I kept hoping it would become. And that acceptance has been painful, but it also brought clarity. So in this series, I'm going to take you all the way back to the beginning, how I met him, what drew me in, the things I ignored, the things I excused, the things I normalized, and how it all slowly led to where I am now. Because this is bigger than one moment. This is bigger than one argument. And this is bigger than one breakup. This is about my life. This is about my daughter. This is about survival. And at some point, I realized I could either keep silently drowning in everything this situation has cost me, or I could start taking my life back. And I'm not willing to just sit around and be a victim, not for myself, and definitely not for my daughter. And if my story helps even one woman see her situation more clearly, ask harder questions, or feel less alone, then speaking is worth it. This is just the beginning.
Yeah. Look, I saw the signs, but I stayed. Thought we was solid. Thought love was safe. Yeah. Look how it changed. Look how it changed. Same smile, same face, but it don't feel the same. Said it was love, but it came with a chain. I gave my heart and got left with the pain. Look how it changed. Look how it changed. Cold in a room, but they speak on my name. Build up the trust, then you turn it to blame. I saw the truth, and I'm saying it plain. Sure, shot it off smooth, everything sounded righteous. Strong with the words, made the pressure feel timeless. I was 10 toes, really moving in alignment. Whole time pride had control behind the guidance. Said trust me, I lean in heavy. Held my tongue, trying not to look petty. Every red flag came soft and subtle. Didn't hit loud till it turned to trouble. One little shift, then another one came. One small moment, then nothing the same. Watch how the warmth start switching to cold. Watch how the truth start slipping and show. Had me questioning what I could feel. Acting like pain wasn't actually real. Try to be calm, try to keep it respectful. Whole time being ignored was expected. Tell me why. Every time I spoke up, it got turned back like I did too much. Tell me why I kept trying to hold us while everything cracked and folded up. Folded up. Yeah, folded up. Look how it changed. Look how it changed. Same smile, same face, but it don't feel the same. Said it was love, but it came with a chain. I gave my heart and got left with the pain. Look how it changed, look how it changed. Cold and cold room, but they speak on my name. Built up the trust, then you turned it to blame. I saw the truth, and I'm saying it plain. Pressure on pressure, kept trying to bend me. Say one thing, then act different against me. I stayed solid, still gave grace plenty. Whole vibe changed, but they still wanna tempt me. Move too slick with the image and optics. Public face clean, private side toxic. Everything polished till truth get exposed. Then suddenly, everybody acting like ghosts. Nah, I remember the tone, I remember the look when the mask got shown. I remember the silence, cutting like shutting the door. You had the chance when I gave you respect. Now every chapter gon' come with receipts next. Look how it changed. Same smile, same face, but it don't feel the same. Said it was love, but it came with a chain. I gave my heart and got left with the pain. Look how it changed, look how it changed. Truth coming out and it's breaking the frame. I stayed quiet long enough through the rain. Now I'm speaking and they gon' remember the name.
Before everything I've been sharing, there was a beginning. And if I'm being honest, nothing about it felt wrong at first. Back in February of 2023, I was injured at work. That injury affected my dominant hand. And from that point on, my life looked very different. I was disabled, I was waiting on 2 surgeries, and I was already receiving disability by the time he came into my life. So when I say he knew exactly what condition I was in from the beginning, I mean that literally. He knew I was vulnerable. He knew I was in pain. He knew I was in a season where I needed stability. And he knew I was trying to rebuild my life while dealing with a major physical injury. I met the deacon through his varsity class. At the time, my dad already knew him, respected him, and had even been counseled by him before. My dad trusted him, and my dad actually referred me to him for spiritual counseling before we ever met in person. So from the beginning, there was already a level of trust there for me, not just based on how he presented himself, but because of who vouched for him. At that point, I wasn't looking at him like a stranger. I was looking at him like someone my father respected, someone established, someone with leadership, someone I believed could be trusted. I ended up volunteering to help with this class, making shirts and helping with graphics and logos for the varsity. That's how we started interacting more. Then eventually we started talking every day. He knew my credit was strong, around a 778. He knew I had very little debt outside of my car. He knew I had savings. He knew I had investments. He knew I had a 401k from years of working. And he knew I was receiving disability while trying to rebuild after my injury. So when I say he understood exactly what position I was in, I mean he had a very clear picture from early on. He knew what I had built before meeting him. He knew what I had access to, and he knew how vulnerable I already was physically and financially. At the time, none of that felt dangerous to me. I trusted him. I saw what I believed was strong leadership. He came across confident, structured, and very sure of himself. He had a presence that made it feel like he knew exactly who he was and exactly what he stood for. And in that season I was in, that felt grounding. Because when your own life feels uncertain, someone who appears deeply certain can feel safe. And it wasn't just how he carried himself. It was how he made me feel. With him, I felt chosen. I felt seen. I felt like I was talking to someone with direction, someone who knew where he was going, someone who could lead. And in that season of my life, that meant a lot. He put in effort. He came to visit me, and we spent time together in person for the first time in July of 2023. Looking back now, there were already things that felt off, but at the time I brushed them aside. One thing I remember clearly was feeling confused about donations being collected from followers to supposedly support ministry travel, things like the hotel and the rental car, when in reality, a large part of that trip was centered around coming to spend time with me. At the time, I pushed that feeling aside. I told myself maybe I didn't fully understand how everything worked. Maybe I was overthinking, and maybe there was context that I didn't know. But looking back now, that was one of the first moments where something didn't fully sit right. Still, overall, that visit made everything feel more real. He was consistent with how he had been presenting himself. He was intentional. He was serious. And it felt like the relationship was genuinely going somewhere. Then we started courting. And with that came promises. Not small promises either. Big, life-changing ones. He talked about investing into my business, helping it grow, building something bigger together. He asked me if I had applied for any type of credit lines under my business. I told him no, I hadn't looked into that. But that I did have large limits on my personal credit cards. I just didn't use them because I didn't have a way to pay it back. He told me I would be taken care of, that I wouldn't have to worry financially, that I could relate that as a red flag. I saw it as stability. I saw it as leadership. And honestly, it felt like a relief because I was already in a position where I couldn't fully rely on myself the same way I used to. So hearing someone say, I got it, I'll handle it, you can trust me, it felt comforting. There were bigger plans being made too. Telling my family, talking seriously about the relationship, moving to Washington, starting a life there, and building something together. And there were smaller things too that at the time I interpreted as closeness. He encouraged me to get an iPhone. At first, it was framed around FaceTime communication and staying connected. But once I got the phone, there became an expectation that I share my location with him at all times. And if I didn't, it became an issue. There was also an expectation that I ask before giving my new number out to anyone, and he would regularly ask who had access to me. At the time, I read all of that as closeness, like we were serious, like he was invested, like we were building. Looking back now, it felt more one-sided than I realized then. And when you combine all of that, the effort he was showing, the promises he was making, and the way he made me feel, and the season of life I was already in, it created a situation where I trusted him fully. So I started moving accordingly. I started making decisions based on what he said our life was going to look like. And I really want people to understand what that looked like financially. I was not some wealthy independent woman casually handing over extra money. I had already become disabled before I met him. I was surviving off disability while waiting on surgery and trying to rebuild my life. The money I was receiving was supposed to help me survive one of the hardest seasons of my life. And over time, I ended up trusting him with not only my monthly disability payments, but also my savings, my investments, my disability back pay, and financial resources I had built before I ever met him. And in this series, I'm going to break down exactly how extensive that became, because it escalated fast. By August of 2023, I moved to Washington. And once I relocated, everything changed. I was no longer in the same environment. I was no longer around my support system. I no longer had the same level of independence I had before. And by September of 2023, we were married. Looking back now, that happened very fast. But when you're in it and you trust the person and you believe what they're saying, it doesn't feel fast. It feels intentional. It feels right, confidence. I trusted what I was hearing and I trusted him. And that's how it started. Not with obvious warning signs, not with chaos, not with a dramatic collapse, but with trust, with consistency, with promises, with feeling chosen, with feeling like I was stepping into something stable. And what I didn't understand at the time was how fast everything was about to escalate. Financially, emotionally, and practically. Because once I got to Washington, things started moving very quickly. And in the next episode, I'm going to get into the first red flags I ignored and how trusting what I believed we were building ended up costing me over $60,000 and changing my financial life completely.
I'm such a real nigga. I don't give a fuck. You can send this shit to fucking vocab alone. You fail to realize one thing is that I dedicated my life 15 years, and women have tried to destroy me before, and it didn't work. So you can record all you want and send it to vocab, sonetta. I don't give a fuck. Like, you think you recording something that's gonna stop me from talking?
So why do you?
Being like how I'm being?
So why do you care if I recorded it then? Why do you care if I recorded it then?
Take a picture of it. Sign it.
Why?
Send it to whoever you want. I don't give a fuck.
Then why do you care? Why are you making it a big deal then? Why are you saying anything about it? Just because the only reason why I said that?
I never fucked with a
It's clear. You never did any of the stuff that you're doing with me with anybody else. That's why I'm in the situation that I'm in and nobody else is.
Fold it up. Look how it changed, look how it changed. Same smile, same face, but it don't feel the same. Said it was love, but it came with a chain. I gave my heart and got left with the pain. Look how it changed, look how it changed. Cold and cold room, but they speak on my name. Built up the trust, then you turned it to blame. I saw the truth, and I'm saying it plain. Pressure on pressure, kept trying to bend me. Say one thing, then act different against me. I stayed solid, still gave grace plenty. Whole vibe changed, but they still wanna tempt me. Move too slick with the image and optics. I remember the tone, I remember the look when the mask got shown. I remember the silence, cutting like steel. I remember exactly how all of it feel. Now, I ain't covering nothing no more. Truth on the table, I'm shutting the door. You had the chance when I gave you respect. Now every chapter gon' come with receipts next. Look how it changed, same smile, same face, but it don't feel the same. Said it was love, but it came with a chain. I gave my heart and got left with the pain. Look how it changed, look how it changed. Truth coming out and it's breaking the frame. I stayed quiet long enough through the rain. Now I'm speaking and they gon' remember the name.
Yeah. It's on, boy. Yeah. EBT cards in the wallet while he preaching wealth online. Whole house on assistance, but he acting self-made live. G-Wagon in the videos, designer frames and lies. Telling women submit harder while they barely get by. Every season, new merch, new doctrine, new scheme. Same time manipulation, dressed up as a dream. Everybody fund the image, everybody play a role. Whole time leadership, draining people dry to feed the show. Yeah. You called it kingdom building, I call it marketing. Every month another vision, another target audience. Tuition for the online school, counseling with a fee. Whole time your own household drowning in instability. Snap benefits, feeding kids while you flex online. Talking 6 figures, but still everybody in the line. State aid, EBT, assistance on the side. But online it's high value, patriarch provider every night. You kept saying order, you kept saying submit. Meanwhile, watch funding lifestyles and getting blamed for it. Every concern became rebellion if we questioned the script. And every time accountability came, you somehow would flip. Empty cards in the wallet while he preaching wealth online. Whole house on assistance, but he acting self-made live. G-Wagon in the videos, designer frames and lies. Telling women submit harder while they barely get by. Every season, new merch, new doctrine, new scheme. Same tired manipulation, dressed up as a dream. Everybody fund the image, everybody play a role. Whole time leadership, draining people dry to feed the show. Then call the woman bitter when she finally speak her mind, yeah. And maybe the internet only sees the polished side. The lives, the speeches, the luxury, the image. But behind closed doors, some of us were surviving, not thriving. You wanted loyalty without transparency. Wanted devotion without reciprocity. Wanted wives funding visions while you controlled the pace. Then acted shocked when somebody finally escaped. I used to think leadership meant sacrifice and care. Not women scared to question where the money disappeared. Not check your feelings, do what your husband says while he outside every night and you home in distress. And the wildest part, I really believed you. Thought structure meant safety, cause that's what you feed people. Till I realized control and leadership ain't the same. And the title don't automatically make a man change. Yeah, yeah. Benefits and Benzes. That contradiction said more than anything else ever could. Yeah.
So we can do things that are reasonable, like take you off the lease. Like I can't take you off the lease of the car. I was trying to put the lease of my car in somebody else's, so I can't take you off the lease of the car.
You can. It's possible. I used to work at the bank and we did lease buyouts all the time.
So how do we do it?
You apply for your own loan and you get approved for the amount and put in your own name, or you get somebody else to co-sign with you and transfer the car to your guys' name.
Okay, maybe I'll consider that. As far as taking your name off the lease, yes. To be honest with you, you don't even need to come back up here. I can ship all your shit back down there.
No, I'm gonna come get my stuff and get my car.
Okay. All right. Okay, so you can come get your stuff, you can come get your car, and as far as every dollar back, you won't be getting that. That's like not even realistic.
No, you're not realistic of not giving it back to me because you didn't.
Okay, listen to me. Go call vocab and get on vocab and go start that. Go further, because I would have a whole camp going against you and your whole family, because I got a whole list of shit too.
Like
so
what?
If you want to do it like that, listen. If you want to do it like that, we can't.
No, you want to do it like that, not me.
Okay,
you.
okay. So all right, so that's what we're gonna do. You can come back up here. You can get your shit. You can go back down there, and guess what? You can remarry a nigga, the same nigga that. I'm not even gonna do that. But
You can't help yourself.
No, I can't help. Whatever you do, guess what? I promise you're going to force Zakari's hand. And
No.
every camp in Israel is going to be against you. So
It's because of what you did, because of what you're doing.
Shut up.
Because of what you're doing.
No, whatever video you try to put out, I want you to know every camp in this truth will be against you.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to know that. Wi-Fi and everybody else.
Okay, because of what you did, not me. Because of what you did, not me.
Okay, because of what I did.
Yeah.
You put your footage out. My people still going to love me regardless. They know I'm not perfect.
Okay, it doesn't matter about the video footage or
I'm done
anything.
I'm done talking. I'm going to leave your car in your driveway, and nigga, I'm blocking. I'm gonna block you from my kids, and nigga, I'm just done.
Yeah,
all this recording shit, all this recording, all of that shit, like
Why?
I don't all this recording and all put out the audio.
What did you say?
I'm gonna leave this car in your driveway. I'm gonna block you from my kids, and I don't care if you remarry. Period. I'm done.
What did you say?
I am done.
What
period.
did you say? You're the one that's talking about you're going to go on YouTube and do a live stream. Why are you mad at me?
I can go on YouTube and do a live stream about my motherfucking situation without telling them.
You literally just said that you were going to go on there and talk about your third marriage. That's what you just said. That's what you just said. And who's your third marriage?
You.
Okay, so you could do all of that stuff about me, Marco. Talking about you need national feedback.
I'm not gonna do that. But guess what?
But that's what you said you were going to do.
Guess what? Okay, I'm gonna park this car. I'm telling you what I'm gonna do right now. You gotta record it.
No.
I'm gonna park this car in your driveway. I'm gonna block you from my children, and then you
No.
know. I don't care.
No.
I don't care if that house goes to eviction. I don't care if this car goes.
No.
I'm just done.
No,
Period.
then if you're done with me, then give me back my money so I could get out of debt. You want to leave me, then leave me how you found me. Leave me how you found me.
Is that gonna pay for this car?
Huh?
The money I gave you, is that gonna pay for this car?
It's going to take all my credit cards away, and it's going to get me back to where I was at before. And the car is going to get out of my name. I don't know how I'm going to do it if you just leave it on my doorstep, because you're not going to go to the bank and try to get a loan of your own or try to get it into somebody else's name. You're just going to leave it on me, which is fucked up. Like you've been saying that you were going to do anyways. This is what you're fucking doing. You're not right. What you're doing is not right. You're financially exploiting me and abusing me.
Here's what you don't understand. You're painting this picture of me when there's two women that will come out in public and say,
why?
This little half mixed breed bitch is lying. She's half devil.
What is your dad? What is your dad?
My dad is all black.
And you're lying. You already told me that he was mixed with white, so stop lying.
My dad's dad is black.
Okay, my dad is black. So what is your dad and what am I?
I'm not my dad. Either way though, I'm gonna. You think you're funny? You think it's all fun and games. Like, why do you want it? Why do you want me to get into a point where I don't care what the Israel? Why do you want me to get to a point to where I could really?
It's not. It's gonna leave it on me, which found me. Leave me how you found me.
Is that gonna pay for this car?
Huh?
The money I gave you, is that gonna pay for this car?
It's going to take all my credit cards away, and it's going to get me back to where I was at before. And the car is going to get out of my name. I don't know how I'm going to do it if you just leave it on my doorstep, because you're not going to go to the bank and try to get a loan of your own or try to get it into somebody else's name. You're just going to leave it on me, which is fucked up. Like you've been saying that you were going to do anyways. This is what you're fucking doing. You're not right. What you're doing is not right. You're financially exploiting me and abusing me.
Here's what you don't understand. You're painting this picture of me when there's two women that will come out in public and say,
why?
This little half mixed breed bitch is lying. She's half devil.
What is your dad? What is your dad?
My dad is all black.
And you're lying. You already told me that he was mixed with white, so stop lying.
My dad's dad is black.
Okay, my dad is black. So what is your dad and what am I?
I'm not my dad. Either way though, I'm gonna. You think you're funny? You think it's all fun and games. Like, why do you want it? Why do you want me to get into a point where I don't care what the Israel? Why do you want me to get to a point to where I could really?
It's not my fault.
Care. No. Listen to me. Do you not care that I could turn into a greasy ass nigga and say fuck the Israelites and all of that and really get on you in a whole type of way that you couldn't even respond to? Why do you want to push a nigga there?
I don't.
Like, why do you want me?
I don't.
You know I got more money than you and your whole family. Why would you want me to just like say, all right, fuck that. I'm about to just slaughter this bitch. Why do you want me to do that?
You want to do that. That's not what I want you to do. That's what you want to do.
That's what I want to do. I want to kill you and your
Why you want to kill me and my family? Why would you even bring that up?
I just asked you a question, you fucking dummy. I want to kill you and your family. That's what you're saying?
That's what you're saying. I didn't bring that up. Who brought that up? Who brought that up? I never said you want to kill me and my whole family.
You know what? Here's the thing.
This is crazy.
I'm such a real nigga. I don't give a fuck. You can send this shit to fucking vocab alone. You fail to realize one thing is that I dedicated my life 15 years, and women have tried to destroy me before, and it didn't work. So you can record all you want and send it to vocab.net. I don't give a fuck. Like, you think you recording something that's going to stop me from talking?
So why do you?
Being like how I'm being?
So why do you care if I recorded it then? Why do you care if I recorded it then?
Take a picture of it, sign it,
why?
send it to whoever you want. I don't give a fuck.
Then why do you care? Why are you making it a big deal then? Why are you saying anything about it? Just because the only reason why I said that?
I never fucked with a.
It's clear. You never did any of the stuff that you're doing with me with anybody else. That's why I'm in the situation that I'm in and nobody else is.
Such one nigga's on. So give me a second. I'm going to be right out. Yeah. Wait, what happened?
After everything I shared about how it started, this is really where things began shifting for me. Because the red flags were there early. They just didn't look extreme at first. They weren't loud. They weren't obvious. A lot of it was subtle. It was how quickly everything became centered around him, his expectations, his structure, his way of doing things, his authority, and there didn't feel like much room to slow down and process what I was experiencing. There didn't feel like much room to question things. At the time, I convinced myself that was normal. I told myself that was order. That was how leadership looked. That this was what building a marriage was supposed to feel like. One of the biggest shifts early on involved finances. And I want to clarify something here. By the time I started sending money, I did not feel like I was just handing money over with no understanding of what was happening. Part of why I felt comfortable doing that in the first place was because I had been told I would be added to both his personal bank account and his business account. That mattered to me because in my mind, that meant transparency. That meant shared finances. That meant I would be able to see what was coming in, what was going out, and that we were actually building together. So when I started giving financially, I believed I was contributing into something I also had visibility into. I believed I was stepping into a real partnership, that there was structure, that there was a plan, and that we were building something together as husband and wife. That's what made it feel safe enough to trust. But over time, that follow through never actually happened. And once I started asking more directly about being added to the accounts, that's when things began shifting. And even before I fully realized how much was changing, I had already started giving. I was receiving disability payments around $756 a week, and I was sending that consistently. I had savings, investments, a 401k, and over time, I gave access to that too, because I believed I was building a future. At the same time, I was being encouraged to use my credit, open credit cards, business credit cards, personal credit cards, make purchases, put things in my name. I had worked hard for my credit, and I was being told that this would help us grow. But what was really happening was I was taking on more and more responsibility while carrying all the liability and all the risks. At one point, I was told to sell my car. My payment was only around $300 a month. I was told financially it made more sense. So I did. I sold it. I made about $2,000, and that money was taken and used by my husband. So now I've lost my car, lost that money, and become more dependent. And I was not on any bank account. I didn't actually have access to the money I was sending. And I kept asking, September, October, November, December. During a counseling call with my dad and Gorilla Hebrew in December 2023, in front of everyone, my husband said clearly he was going to add me to the account the next week. I have that recorded.
I'm not going to be dogging you verbally. I'm not going to I'm still gonna put you on the account, but I'm not gonna threaten you with leaving you in debt.
So I followed up, and suddenly, small things became big issues: arguments, tension, separations.
Separation. And if you disobey any order, any one more order moving forward, is going to be an out-of-state separation. Now, guess what? You can say, you can't force me on a plane. Well, guess what? You're right. I can force you on a plane. But I just won't pay a motherfucking thing again and force you on the streets.
Thought you said you can't do that.
If you want to disobey my orders, I'm leaving your ass broke, dry, dusted, and disgusted.
You already did that. You're already doing that.
You're broke, dry, dusted, and disgusted right now.
Yes.
Dusted and disgusted. Shut up.
Oh my gosh.
Man, I got the fucking ugliest, dumbest bitch in the world.
No,
this is crazy. You're broke, dusted, and disgusted, but you're at a house with heat and a car, and you're not wanting for nothing.
Then, eventually it became, he just changed his mind. What he told me wasn't realistic. He didn't feel comfortable. His other wives weren't on the account, and it wouldn't be fair. But that didn't feel fair, because his other wives had not given up their life savings in a matter of months. And at the same time, he was still calling and texting constantly, not to check on me, not good morning. It was about money. Did you call your workers' comp attorney? When is your settlement coming? When are you sending more? And I need people to understand how confusing that was. I'm not trusted enough to be on the account, but trusted enough to fund everything. And I didn't have oversight over what was being done with the money. I was trusting that it was being handled the way I was told. And that also showed up in how my credit was being handled. Because part of what I had been told was that the money being sent would be used to take care of these financial obligations. That included my credit cards. But over time, I started realizing they were not actually being paid down the way that he presented they would be. A lot of times, it was minimum payments. Sometimes only around $100. Not enough to actually reduce the balances. Not even enough to keep up with the interest that had been accruing. And in some cases, I was also being told to use those same credit cards to cover rent and other expenses. That was another part that became hard to process later. Because from my perspective, I was sending money with the understanding that these things were being taken care of. But in reality, the balances were increasing, the interest was increasing, and the financial damage kept building underneath me while I was trusting that there was a plan. Another thing I overlooked at the time was his past. He has openly said publicly that he used to be a pimp. That's not me exposing anything. He has said that himself. And back then, I saw that as his past. But looking back now, certain patterns felt different. The way money was approached, the pressure, the repeated focus on what I could provide. And meanwhile, I was being told he was already established, a six-figure man, that he didn't need my money, that everything was already handled. But somehow I was still expected to hand mine over anyway. And the contrast got harder to ignore because I wasn't actually being taken care of. I was funding things. And it showed up in everyday life too. Simple things I had regularly done before I met him, getting my nails done, getting my wax, basic self-care, suddenly became a problem. Too expensive. Not necessary. Questioned. Even wanting a certain hairstyle became an issue. If me and a friend wanted massages, it had to be something cheaper. Meanwhile, I never received those things. No thoughtful gifts, no clothes, no shoes, no gestures that reflected care. Meanwhile, he was in new clothes, jewelry, driving luxury cars, going out at night, spending freely. I even have recordings of him admitting he spends a couple $100s a day. So it wasn't that the money wasn't being spent. It was just, it wasn't being spent on me. And part of what made that even harder for me to process was the financial contradiction I was seeing in real time. Because while I was being told certain things could not be afforded, while I was sending money, while I was trying to survive off disability and eventually government cash aid after those payments maxed out, the household was also receiving EBT benefits. Me, him, and each wife separately. There were even times he asked me to send money because the EBT for the household had already been used for the month, and he didn't want to spend his own money. At the same time, I was watching a luxury vehicle worth over $250,000 being driven. Expensive purchases continue, and money continue being spent in ways that did not line up with what I was being told. So, from my perspective, it felt incredibly confusing. Because on one hand, there were conversations about finances being tight or why support cannot be provided. Ask this person for this, ask this person for that. And on the other hand, I was watching spending continue in ways that became harder and harder for me to ignore. My accounts had to be monitored. Every single dollar that I had to be known about and also had to have been accounted for. I was instructed on a plan to put a $125,000 vehicle in the name of my business, a Mercedes AMG GT63 that he personally went and picked out. He ended up driving that car as his everyday vehicle, putting miles on it regularly instead of continuing to use his G-Wagon, saying that gas was too expensive and he wanted to keep the mileage lower on his other vehicle. I was told it would help my business. It would help my credit, help us build. That we would start a business renting the car out and basically have it paying for itself. That didn't happen. So instead of the car operating the way it had originally been presented to me, it became another financial obligation in my name while he was the one primarily using it. Once we got to the dealership and after my credit had already been run, I was told the vehicle could not go under the business because my business was registered in a different state. The salesman made it clear that I was approved on my own, but I wanted both of our names on it. I was told since I was already approved by myself to leave it in my name because my husband would be making the payments anyway. And later, that same vehicle got held over my head repeatedly. I was told he wouldn't pay it, that I would be stuck with it. Same thing with the rent. Bills, financial obligations. It all became something that could be threatened, used, thrown in my face. And by that point, it stopped feeling like finances. It started feeling like leverage, like control, like knowing I was in a position where leaving wasn't simple. Because slowly, without fully realizing it while it was happening, I went from being financially independent to being in a position where everything was tied to him. And that kind of dependency changes everything. Because now it's not just emotional. Now it's survival. How do you leave? How do you rebuild? How do you recover from decisions you made in trust when you no longer have the resources that you had before? And by the time I started asking these questions, a lot had already happened. Over time, the money I sent, the credit I used, the debt I took on, all of it added up. And eventually, I lost over $60,000. My credit was damaged. My financial stability changed completely. I ended up having to file for bankruptcy. And one of the hardest parts for me now is hearing him say it was so long ago, that I should stop bringing it up, move on, let it go. But the consequences didn't disappear. My credit is still affected. My options are still affected. My financial stability is still affected. If those things had not happened, I would have choices I don't currently have. I would have more independence than I have now. So for me, this isn't about staying stuck in the past. It's about the reality I'm still living with today. And it wasn't like I kept all of this to myself either. At one point, I went to his former camp leader, and I told him what was happening, that my husband was lying, that he wasn't doing what he said he would do, that he was not being a man of his word, and his response to me was, Is this the first man that's ever lied to you? And I said, no. And he said, okay, then you should know better. He told me I had to start accepting accountability for the things that happened. And that stuck with me because I remember thinking, this is not some random man. This is someone people follow. Someone I was told I could trust. Someone I was supposed to be able to go to leadership for help with. And somehow, the responsibility still came back to me. Even when I did ask for help. Even when I did speak up. And I also have recordings from these conversations. I remember talking to Chief directly and trying to explain what was happening, how certain things being said and done were affecting me, how unstable things felt, and how serious some of it had become. For example, my husband would constantly tell me he was going to give me a bill of divorce. At one point, he had even typed one up in a text message to me, but he never hit send. I wanted him to send it. And what Chief said to me was, people say things they don't mean when they're mad. And yes, sometimes that can be true. I understand that. But in that moment, it felt like one more explanation for behavior I had already been living with over and over. Because from my perspective, the pattern kept feeling the same. Something would happen. I would speak up. I would ask for help or accountability. And somehow it would circle back to an explanation for why my husband behaved the way that he did. Chief also told me he was not co-signing my husband's behavior. He said he talks to him often, that he gives him advice all the time. And I remember saying, not that I've seen, because from where I was standing, every time something serious happened and I reached out, it felt like the behavior was ultimately minimized or explained away. And what made that harder was hearing the same thing over and over from different people. That's just how Deacon is, or you know how Deacon is. That's just his personality. And after hearing that enough, it starts feeling like the behavior itself is becoming normal to everybody around him. Meanwhile, I'm the one living inside of it. I'm the one trying to figure out what is okay, what is not okay, and why things keep getting brushed past. And that felt incredibly isolating and painful because it made me feel even more alone inside of something I was already struggling to make sense of. At first, the oversight was all lying on Alazar. However, no one was able to hold my husband accountable, mainly because at the end of the conversations, after everyone was off the councils, my husband would say, I'm his wife, and at the end of the day, what he says goes, and that no one can tell him what to do, not even Alazar. He said that if Alazar told him to do something he didn't want to do, he would just leave the camp.
Why can't I record what you're saying to me and what you're doing to me so that you could just get away with it?
You can, but you won't be able to show your face after we, especially when I tell Elazar this shit. You won't be able to show your face.
Because I recorded a conversation of you cussing me out.
Listen to what I'm saying. You won't even be able to pay somebody $20 for a blowjob after this. After we get done with you.
I would never do that anyways.
I'm just letting you know.
And you're doing all of that after you just said you'll be willing to leave Sakari because you don't want to uphold your end of the deal.
No, it's not uphold.
Yes, it is.
No, if I said that I'm going to be forced to do something that I absolutely don't want to do, then yes, I will leave Sakari, but not the truth.
Okay, Marco.
And I'll tell anybody that. Record that. Write it down. Take a picture.
So eventually, it must have become too much for Alazar, and he had said we had to talk with higher elders to help us out, that he couldn't counsel us anymore. But my husband always found a reason he no longer respected those elders' input and did not take their advice. And I also want to address something here, because I already know it's going to come up. Yes, I documented certain conversations over the years, and I'm glad I did, because by that point, there had already been too many serious conversations, too many promises, too many threats, too many moments where things were said clearly in one moment and then later denied, reframed, or minimized. And this wasn't hidden. There are recordings that I have where he literally told me to record my own videos. He told me to go live many times, told me to put our business out publicly if I wanted to, told me to send the recordings to Vocab Malone, send them to Saw Nutter, send them to whoever, saying he didn't care, saying he was a real one and that the community would side with him anyways. And there are recordings where things were said to me that were degrading and vulgar enough that hearing them back now is still hard. So yes, I documented those things. Because when finances are involved, when threats are involved, when major promises are being made, and when conversations keep escalating and later get reframed, documentation matters. And looking back now, I'm grateful I trusted myself enough to keep records in real time. Because later on, when I started speaking up more directly and asking for accountability, having proof mattered, especially when dealing with someone this volatile and unstable. And I'm going to get more into that in the next episodes too. Looking back now, I can clearly see that those early red flags, the ones I explained away, justified, and gave grace to, were the beginning of something much bigger. But at the time, I believed him. I believed in who I thought he was. I believed in what I thought we were building. And that's the part people don't always understand. I wasn't making reckless decisions. I was making decisions based on trust. And that trust ended up costing me everything. In the next episode, I'm going to get into how things started showing up beyond finances, how I was spoken to, how I was treated, and what daily life actually looked like behind closed doors. These are the Cash App totals for what was sent and received between the two of us. And keep in mind the screenshots of him directing me on all the cash deposits I made directly into his bank account. The money spent on me through the entire course of our relationship, meaning my bills and necessities, which I'll round up to be generous and added up to maybe $18,000 to $20,000, is nowhere near equal to the amount of money that I gave. That includes any Apple Cash transactions or even bank transfers he may have sent. Out of 7 months, the first 3 months of rent, he instructed me to pay with my credit cards, which he never repaid. Nearly everything I had, including furniture and even bills, were paid with my credit cards that he never repaid. To put things into perspective, here's a list of every asset I had and lost over the course of this relationship.
Everybody knew, everybody knew. Nobody said nothing, I was still believing. Everybody was fronting, smiles at the feast, but the vibe said something. Looking back now, yeah, the silence was disgusting. Everybody knew, nobody said a word. Every time I spoke, somehow I was the disturbed. Everybody heard, everybody observed, but they let me learn it the hard way, that's what hurt. Walked in thinking I found me a family. Found a whole lot of people protecting the fantasy. Everybody playing like it's love and community. Till you ask one question and suddenly it's mutiny. One wife, two wives, dinner and drinks. Thought we was connected, now I stop and I think. Why every friendship ended right at the brink? Why every bond sank before it could link? I was too new to see it. Everybody else had already agreed to be it. Walk on eggshells, never question the leader. And if you get hurt, somehow you the procedure. That's the part that still gets me. Not the anger, not the insults, not the whiskey. It's everybody acting like the picture was pretty while watching the whole thing happen in the city. Everybody knew, nobody said nothing, I was still believing. Everybody was fronting, smiles at the feast, but the vibe said something. Looking back now, yeah, the silence was disgusting. Everybody knew, nobody said a word. Every time I spoke, somehow I was the disturbed. Everybody heard, everybody observed, but they let me learn it the hard way, that's what hurt. Told me don't worry, he just be saying stuff. That sentence alone should've been enough. Cause if it's normal, then it's happening often. And if it's happening often, why we calling this love? That's when the curtain slipped. Saw the whole room and the virgin switch. Everybody had a role in it. Everybody knew exactly what the problem is. But nobody wanna be the next target. Nobody wanna lose their spot in the market. Nobody wanna risk their image getting tarnished. So everybody's silent while the truth sat parked there. And maybe that's the lesson. Sometimes the loudest thing ain't the aggression. Sometimes it's everybody witnessing and still treating the damage like a blessing. I don't need revenge. Truth already do what it do. Funny thing about darkness, eventually everybody see through. I don't need to scream, I don't need to fight. The mask always slips when you give it enough time. Everybody knew, nobody said nothing. Now they act surprised when the stories start buzzing. Now they act shocked when the receipts start coming. Man, the truth been sitting there, y'all just wasn't discussing. Everybody knew, nobody said a word. Now the silence louder than anything I heard. Everybody watched, everybody observed, and that's the reason the story gotta be heard.
After everything I shared about the financial red flags, I want to talk about what started happening emotionally once I actually moved to Washington. Because what people need to understand is that things did not slowly become unhealthy years later. Some of the most disturbing moments started happening within the first month of me being there. And at the time, I didn't fully understand what I was experiencing. I kept trying to explain things away. I kept telling myself, maybe he was stressed. Maybe he had been drinking too much. Maybe this was just one bad night. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I needed to. to be more respectful, softer, more patient, or more submissive. I was still trying to believe I had made the right decision. I had just moved my life and I had trusted him. I had already started building my life around him, so I was not looking for reasons to leave. I was looking for reasons to stay. The first major incident happened after he wanted me to meet his other wives. I had gone to lunch with one wife and then dinner with the other. After dinner, me and the second wife didn't have small children with us at the time, so we asked him if it was okay for us to continue our night, maybe go play darts and have another drink. He said yes. He even said he might join us. So we went. While we were there, we saw him outside driving through the parking lot, and I thought he was about to park and come inside, but he didn't. Instead, he texted us telling us to leave. So I responded with a thinking emoji because I was genuinely confused. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. I wasn't challenging him. I was just wondering where he was going or why he wasn't coming inside after saying he might join us. That's when he called me. And that was the first time he really went off on me like that. He started cussing me out, telling me to go home right now. Calling me out my name, asking who I thought I was, and telling me I don't need to send emojis when he tells me to do something. I was shocked. I started trying to explain myself, but the more aggressive he got, the more scared I became. So eventually I just said okay and I left. On the way home, he called me again. He was still angry. He told me that when he tells me something, I need to just say okay. I don't need to ask questions. I don't need to send emojis. I don't need to say anything else. He compared me to the other wife, saying she just said okay and I didn't. He said I needed to learn respect. And I remember crying while driving home. That was the first time I had experienced that side of him. And because it was late, because he had also been out drinking, because that was already part of his normal routine, I told myself maybe he had just had too much to drink. Maybe alcohol got the best of him. Maybe this wasn't really him. When I got home, he told me to call him once I settled. So I did. And when I called, I wasn't combative. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't trying to fight. I was apologetic. I was trying to de-escalate. I was trying to fix it. I was trying to understand what I had done wrong. And then the conversation shifted. He broke down crying. He started saying he was worried about me hurting his children. He said he wouldn't be able to handle that. He asked me over and over if I wanted to leave him. And when a grown man is crying to you, asking if you're going to leave after you've already moved your life and trusted him, of course I said no. I told him I would stay. I told him I wouldn't hurt his kids. And after that emotional shift, the conversation turned sexual. He wanted me to send him pictures and videos. Then came the affection, the reassurance, the love bombing. And because of that, I convinced myself it was just a bad night. I thought maybe he had been drinking, maybe he was triggered, maybe he regretted it, and maybe it wouldn't happen again. But it did happen again. The second major incident happened during the Feast of Tabernacles camping trip. Me and the two wives had been sitting together after the kids went to sleep. He was at another lot with his friends drinking, and later that night he came back to our lot and said something to his second wife about not needing any more drinks. At some point, he acted like he was going to pour water on her. She was telling him to stop, and he was telling her to put her hands down, to be quiet, and to sit still. I saw her saying stop, so I chimed in. I said something like, "Honey, don't do that. That's rude." But I said it with a smile. I was trying to keep it light. I was not trying to challenge him, and I thought I was helping. But he turned on us. He told me not to tell him what to do with his wife. He said he had half the mind to send both of us bitches home that night. He said me and Kia were out of order, that we had been hanging too close together, and that we thought we could tell him what to do. He said we needed to go to our tent and go to bed right now. Mind you, this was in the middle of the night, around 1 a.m. We were at a campsite over an hour away from home, and he was threatening to send us home in the middle of the night, except for Brandy. I tried to talk to him because I was genuinely confused and embarrassed. I wanted to understand why he had spoken to us that way, but he told me not to talk. He told me to walk away from him right now or he was going to show me worse than what he had just shown me. He told me if I knew what was best for me, I would turn around and go do what he said and stop being out of order. That moment scared me. I asked if I could go to my car because I needed space. Me, Kia, and Brandy were sharing a tent, and I just needed to be alone for a few minutes to process what had happened. He asked if I was leaving. I told him no, that I just needed space. Eventually, he said that was fine. So I went to my car and I sat there for maybe 20 minutes, crying, contemplating what I had gotten myself into. Kia texted me to check on me and asked me to come back to the tent. She told me things were going to be okay, so I went back. When I got back to the tent, Brandy was there. She asked if I was okay, and I said yes, and then she said something that stayed with me. She basically told me not to worry about what he had just done, that he always does things like that and says things he doesn't mean. She said he wasn't actually going to send us home, that he'd just be saying stuff. And something clicked in me, because I remember thinking, wait, he always does this? This is normal here? This is something everybody already knows? This is something everybody just accepts? That was one of the first moments where I realized this may not have been a one-off. This may not have been alcohol. This may not have just been a bad night. This may have been who he was. But even then, I was still trying to process it. I still didn't fully understand the pattern yet. After that, me and Kia were never really close again. It felt like after that incident, there was pressure for her to distance herself from me. Then suddenly there were different reasons why she didn't like me or she didn't want me around. She would ignore me when I came into a space where she was present, and later it was blamed on her having RBF. But from my perspective, that incident changed the dynamic between us. And that's something I would start noticing more and more. Whenever there was closeness between the wives or any kind of unity, it could become a problem. Instead of building safety or sisterhood, the environment created division, insecurity, and competition. That's what he wanted. That's what he cultivated. The next day at the camping trip, another sister noticed a visible shift in me. She could tell something was wrong. I was sad. I was not myself. I started to vaguely explain what happened to her, but she stopped me and said that this wasn't the time or the place. She said after the camping trip, we would go to dinner and talk about it. So we did. At that dinner, I told her how my husband was treating us. I told her what was happening behind the scenes. I had a genuine bond with this sister. My husband had referred me to her when I originally went to him for spiritual counseling. So it was okay for her to know all the intimate details of my life previously, but now, since it's regarding him, I needed to keep quiet. I guess she told her husband, and after that, her husband stopped coming to camp for about 2 months. From what I understand, when he left, he said he wasn't supportive of the way leadership was treating their wives, and my husband was angry about that. After that, I was made to feel like I had done something wrong by speaking. I was told I run my mouth, that I tell his business, and that if that man fell out of the truth, then him and his family's blood would be on my hands. That kind of pressure is hard to explain unless you understand the environment. It wasn't just, you embarrassed me. It became spiritual. It became guilt. It became, if someone leaves the truth because of what you said about me, that blood is on you. So I stopped talking to her for a while. And that's how isolation happens. Not always by someone physically locking you away, but by making the consequences of speaking feel so heavy that you start silencing yourself. Looking back now, there's something else I realized. At the time, I thought the problem was his behavior. I thought he had anger issues. I thought he drank too much. I thought he treated people badly. But I still believed he was sincere. I still believed he genuinely believed what he was teaching. I still believed he was sincere about the doctrine. That part didn't start unraveling until much later, because over time, I started watching major beliefs change. Not small opinions, major positions. Positions he publicly taught. Positions he built platforms around. Positions he sold products around. For years, he taught Israel-only salvation. Then later, he began teaching Gentile salvation. And what made that difficult for me was that he had publicly said before that if someone wanted to make real money, they would teach Gentile salvation. Then, later, that became the doctrine he was teaching. At the same time, he changed his positions on the names Yahweh and Yahawashi. For years, he taught those names. For years, he defended those names. For years, families learned those names. For years, children learned those names. Then later, he began saying those were not actually the original Hebrew names, and that Paleo-Hebrew was not even a true biblical dialect. This was especially difficult for me because those are the names I pray in. Those were the names I believe in. Those were the names I prayed throughout my pregnancy. Those were the names I prayed during my labor and delivery. I had a healthy pregnancy and a delivery that went exactly how I had hoped. And the entire time I was praying in those names. When I asked him about it, he told me I could still use those names and that it would not affect my salvation. He just no longer believed they were the original names. But what confused me was that he had spent years teaching those names publicly. Just a few months before he made this change, he had produced children's books called Yahweh's Kingdom for His Children and Yahawashi's Kingdom for His Children. Families bought those books. Parents taught their children from those books. And when I pointed that out to him and said, "You just sold all those books with Yahweh and Yahawashi's name in it," he told me, "I know, I'm going to have to make some more and put Gentiles in there." That conversation stuck with me because I wasn't thinking about money at first. I was thinking about sincerity. I was thinking about belief. I was thinking about whether the person teaching these things actually believed them when he was teaching them. What made it even more confusing was learning later that he publicly stated he and Hassad had already presented this information to Al-Azhar before the doctrine had changed publicly, and that Al-Azhar rejected it. So now I'm looking at the timeline wondering, if you believed this before the public change, then how long were you teaching something different from what you actually believed? And if these were major doctrinal issues, why continue producing materials, selling books, charging for classes, and building products around positions you no longer agreed with? Those were questions I wasn't ready to ask yet, but they started forming because some of the same things that made me question him as a husband eventually made me question him as a teacher. The contradictions, the inconsistency, the certainty one day and the reversal the next. And that wasn't limited to salvation or the names. At one point during our separation, he told me he had reread Matthew and that he believed he could actually give me a bill of divorce, even though there had been no fornication. He was preparing to write one. Then, a couple weeks later, he changed his position again and said he had misunderstood the passage and could not give me a bill of divorce after all. Watching major position change and then change again started raising questions I wasn't ready to ask yet. But that's a much bigger conversation for another episode. Back then, I wasn't asking those questions yet. Back then, I was still trying to make sense of the man I had just married. Then came the third incident, the vegan dog incident. And I know that may sound small from the outside, but this is one of those moments that shows how quickly something minor could become emotionally destructive. One night, close to midnight, he texted me asking if I had vegan dogs. He had been out drinking and bar hopping, and this was something that became normal over time. Him expecting me to get up late at night, make food, bring him food, or even drive long distances by myself to get him something to eat after he had been out all night. That night, I packed up the food and I brought it to him. But because it was not technically my day, he told me to leave it at the door instead of coming inside because another wife was inside. At first, I was joking. I said it was kind of weird to leave food on the doorstep. It was light. It was playful. There were LOLs in the messages. I was not attacking him. But later, he called me, and that phone call changed something in me. He cussed me out badly. He called me names. He told me I was disrespectful. He said I only wanted to go inside because I didn't get my way. He said his other wives would never talk to him like that. He said, and I quote, "My bitches don't talk to me like that." He said I looked like a clown. He insulted my intelligence. He called me dumb. He told me he felt like sending me back to San Diego. And while this was happening, his roommate was in the car with him, listening and laughing. I stayed mostly quiet on that call. I froze. He told me to speak. He told me to express myself, but I had nothing to say. I was shocked. I was hurt and I was overwhelmed. I was crying, and I remember feeling like no matter what I said, it would be used against me. What makes this moment even harder for me to process is that we had just consummated our marriage less than 36 hours before this. So emotionally, I was in a very vulnerable place. I believed I had just stepped into a deeper level of marriage, intimacy, and commitment. And then suddenly, within a day and a half, I was being degraded, humiliated, and spoken to like I was nothing. The next morning, he texted me saying he could have sworn he had told me to express myself, that it had been hours, and that I had plenty of time to process. And again, instead of being angry, I tried to explain. I told him I didn't understand why he dealt with me so harshly. I told him I wasn't attacking him. I told him the energy in the text seemed light to me. I apologized for offending him. I validated his feelings. I said maybe there were things I could have done differently. And that is one of the clearest parts of the relationship pattern. He went off on me, but I became the one doing the emotional repair. I became the one explaining, apologizing, softening, trying to understand his point of view, trying to calm everything down. At one point, he said that looking back at the texts, he may have read them the wrong way or in the wrong tone. But then he said he needed to lower his standards, that perfection is unreal, and that would help with his issues. That was confusing to me because even when he was kind of acknowledging he may have read things wrong, it still came back around to me being the standard that needed to be lower. And I remember telling him that I threw up after that phone call. I told him I felt disgusted. I told him I felt extremely unhappy and I felt heartbroken. I told him I didn't feel like a good enough woman and that I didn't even feel like he liked me. That is important because it shows where I was emotionally. I was not trying to win an argument. I was not trying to dominate him. I was not trying to disrespect him. I was trying to understand why the man I had just committed myself to could talk to me that way and then act like I was the problem. Later, he asked me what sisters I had talked to since the issue happened. That also stood out to me. Because after something like that, the focus was not just on whether I was okay. It was also on who knew, who had I told, who had I talked to, and what had I said. Then he asked me what all he said the night before because he wanted to have records for preventative measures. I asked if he remembered what he said, and he said he remembered a lot, but not all. So I wrote out what I remembered. And I remembered a lot. I wrote out how the conversation started. I wrote out the names he called me. I wrote out how he said I wanted to go inside because it wasn't my day. I wrote out how he said the other wives didn't like me, how he said no one F's with me, how he made me answer him, how he insulted my intelligence, how his roommate was laughing, how I was crying, and how I froze. He asked if I recorded it. I didn't record it physically, but mentally, it stuck with me. It stuck with me because something broke in me that night. And when I say it broke something in me, I don't mean I stopped caring overnight. I didn't. The text after that show, I still cared. I still tried. I still wanted to believe things could be okay. But something in me had seen something I cannot unsee. And even after all of that, he said he took full accountability. He said he needed to work on his temper and self-control, but then he also asked me to work on doing things that might trigger him. And that's exactly why this pattern was so hard to break out of, because there would be just enough accountability to make me think maybe he understood, but then the responsibility would still be placed back onto me. I still had to manage his triggers. I still had to make sure I didn't say the wrong thing. I still had to learn how to respond correctly. I still had to become smaller, quieter, safer, and easier. And that was all within my first month of living there. 3 major incidents in 1 month. The first time I told myself maybe he drank too much. The second time I realized other wives already knew he acted like this. And the third time I felt something in me break. And looking back now, I can see the patterns so clearly. The explosion, the fear, the crying, the apology, the love bombing, the sexual shift, the blame coming back on me, the concern about who I told, the expectation that I would absorb it, forgive it, and show up the same way the next day. At the time, I didn't have the language for it. I just knew it hurt. I knew I felt confused. I knew I was constantly trying to figure out how to not trigger him, how to be better, and how to be respectful enough, submissive enough, and understanding enough. But the problem was never that I didn't understand how to be a wife. The problem was that I was being conditioned to accept mistreatment as correction, intimidation as leadership, and emotional chaos as something I needed to endure. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about what life behind closed doors actually look like on a regular basis, the daily expectations, the roles, the wives, the children, the public image, and how different everything looked online compared to what was really happening privately. First off, I just want to start by thanking the Most High God Yahweh for giving me the strength and courage to share my story and experience. I have seen a lot of response videos and commentary regarding this all coming to light. While most people are sending positive encouragement and support, a lot of people are being nasty and hateful. I've seen people saying that I'm not allowing space for him to repent or change when I have been involved with this person for going on 3 years, avidly advocating for change and seeking help in many different places. When he called me after the series premiered, I had not spoken to him in almost a month. He did not apologize, but 20 minutes after that call, he made a public response video. When he called me before the 3rd episode came out, he still did not apologize. I have never received even an apology. Still to this day, he has not sent any support for our child and has not even asked about her at all. So when you say I'm not allowing space for change, you have to understand that this man has only been accountable to y'all for the things I've brought out publicly so far because I brought them out publicly. I have not seen any background work being done, only attempts at stopping me from continuing to share my story. People speaking about how he has stepped away from his leadership position and is repenting, just know that you have not heard the whole matter. So how do you know what he should be accountable for? Yes, there's a lot to be talked about. Yes, I'm making it into a series format. Yes, I'm going to continue to release episodes until my story is done being told. At this point, it's bigger than an expose. My story needs to be told, and through the spirit and power of the Most High, no one is going to stop me from doing that. I also want to say that I have been seeing people saying that I chose this man. First of all, I understand the mistake I made in not courting long enough, but still, that does not excuse his behavior. I've seen people saying I'm destroying his reputation, and I want to be very clear. I didn't cause this. Again, the reason this is all being made public is because aside from him being a public figure, the private avenues have never worked. He did not listen. Matthew 18 says, "Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. But if he will not hear thee, Then take with thee 1 or 2 more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and a publican. So, when you spend so long pretending to be someone you're not, eventually the veil will be lifted.
Funny how women become wicked. Right around the time she starts showing you call me a wicked wife, 'cause I stopped letting your ego decide my life. Soon as I got exhausted from holding us upright, now suddenly I'm bitter, difficult, cold, and hard to like. Wicked wife, that's what y'all call women with boundaries. Wicked wife, when she stopped performing happily. Funny how every good woman turned dangerous eventually, after giving everything away in good faith repeatedly.
You wanted Proverbs 31 with overtime shifts and no sleep. Cook, clean, sex, cater to you and spoil you too. Whatever you wanna do, tend to the children, including yours. Still smile soft and speak sweet. No emotion, I was unpleasant to be around. Wanted peace when you brought chaos submission while I paid the bills. Wanted traditional wife labor with no traditional husbandry skills. No coverage, no safety, no marriage with protection, just expectations stacked so high I disappeared inside the pressure. Not the nights I lay awake replaying every word, not the way I shrink myself to keep the peace, not the way to walking on eggshells in my own home. No, the hurt was ignored, but my reaction became the focus. You leave me crying alone because I didn't watch my tone. I got too emotional. Meanwhile, anxiety and panic attacks screwing up my nervous system. But back in your arms, back to my source of comfort. Who first caused me the pain? And that's the part nobody talks about. How women get called wicked after surviving emotional war. Call me a wicked wife, 'cause I stopped letting your ego decide my life. Soon as I got exhausted from holding us upright, trying to keep us tight, now suddenly I'm bitter, difficult, cold, and hard to like. Wicked wife, that's what y'all call women with boundaries. Wicked wife, when she stops suffering happily. Funny how every good woman turned dangerous eventually, after giving everything away in good faith repeatedly. I gave you everything I had, on my time, every dime, from picking out your drawers, cooking and cleaning and making your smoothies, looking after yours and mine. Why you teach what you don't believe in, going out every night? What about family night? Yellow eyes, slurred speech, them spirits on you like a leech. 3 in the morning, you're out partying and drinking, still expecting me to be up. Children sleep, hell I'm sleep. Got an early morning, but get up now and go get your food, 'cause that's what wives do. Boy, you passed by 10 spots, why don't you make that be a stop? I get up and do it anyway. I did everything you told me, but somehow I ain't disobedient. Make it make sense. I tolerated your disrespect far too long. Listen, I'm not your hoe, not your bitch. Boy, who you think dealing with? Damn sis, you can spit. Yeah, I'm a daughter of Zion. Better act like you know why you be lying. Just walk like Christ, talk like Christ, love like Christ. Practice what you preach, we be all good. That's what kept me confused. See, monsters ain't monsters all the time. The constant love bombs, the mixed signals, the sudden acts of affection. That's why women stay. Nobody would survive constant darkness without moments that feel like sunlight in between. You don't wanna why, you don't wanna why. You want devotion without accountability. You want softness while giving aggression, loyalty while breaking trust. And every woman becomes wicked the second she remembers herself. Now let's triple C's, boy, you know I got 'em. Funny how I'm still rebuilding things. Somebody call Ayana to fix my life that you helped destroy. I'm just playing. I know where my up coming from. All praises to the Most High. Still untangling death, still carrying damage, still healing bruises you left behind. And somehow I'm supposed to feel shame. No, I moved in good faith, I loved in good faith, I kept silent in good faith, I trusted your words in good faith. Too bad the actions never followed. That doesn't make me stupid, maybe naive, but it makes you dangerous. And to this day I'm still waiting to be compensated for my narcissist and damages. Everything you took, boy, how you had full access to everything.
everything, including me, but none of the liability. Trifling. No, I write books, scripts to create art, and every project feels less like heartbreaking, more like evidence, and we're standing God's great court. You call me a wicked wife. All I wanted to do was love you, but now I see clearly, but I couldn't recognize we were crooked from birth. Wicked wife, nah, I just got tired of dying slowly inside. Maybe I was never wicked, maybe I just got tired. But you know what the Bible says, a wicked wife is getting to a wicked man. Examine yourselves, brothers.
I think it's important to explain what life actually looked like once I moved there, because I feel like people might have an idea in their head of what this situation was, and it's most likely not that. This wasn't a normal relationship dynamic. There were multiple wives, and everything was structured around him. None of the wives lived with him. We each had our own apartments and showed up for him on our assigned days. We each had days, specific days where we would spend the night at his house, and outside of those 2 days per week, you were pretty much on your own. Even the way that was set up didn't really make sense, for me at least. I was in a position where I couldn't afford to pay rent on my own, which is why I had been living with my mom and saving my money. But when I moved, he had me get an apartment anyway, under the agreement that he was going to be responsible for the rent and the bills. The first 3 months of rent were paid on my credit card with the understanding that it would be handled later, but it never was. So technically, it looked like my rent was being covered, but it was really my credit, my debt, and my responsibility. And I was only there for about 6 months. So despite being married, I wasn't actually living with my husband. We were wives, but we each maintained separate apartments and separate households. We were expected to function as wives, show up as wives, sacrifice as wives, and contribute as wives. But we weren't actually living with the man we were married to. He claimed his goal was to eventually get one big house for all of us to live in together. There were also expectations, things that were required from us, like no matter what, you needed to say good morning and good night every day. It didn't matter if he hadn't replied to your last text, hadn't called you all day, or if you guys were in conflict. You were still expected to say good morning and good night, even if he didn't respond then, too. That was a non-negotiable. But when it came to him, there wasn't that same consistency. He would tell you in a heartbeat, if he doesn't respond, you still need to keep texting him. And not anything he considered annoying. He'd say, I'm going to ignore you sometimes. And if he didn't have a text from you when he woke up or when he went to sleep, even if he wasn't going to respond to you, there was hell to pay. I know that might not sound like a big deal at first, but over time,